Okay, in this second part of our video for creating a CSS navigation menu, we're going to look at how we can change the look and appearance of the menu that we've made by using CSS. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is make sure that I'm working on my style sheet up here in CSS Designer, and I'm going to add a new CSS selector. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be targeting the overall list itself, which I know is encased in tags which are UL tags. So I'm going to type in here hashtag navigation space UL. So what this is going to do is it's going to target an unordered list that is sitting inside a div called navigation. Now there's a few things that I need to set. One, I need to get rid of this automatic indentation that occurred when you create a bulleted list, and two, I need to get rid of the actual bullet points themselves. So the indentation is caused through padding. So I'm going to come down here in layout where it says padding, going to click here to put the link on to make sure that all the values are going to be the same, and just use 0px. So putting the link on means that I just enter one value and they all become the same. What that does is it shifts that whole menu across so it's no longer indented. Next I need to get rid of the actual bullet points themselves, and they are the list style type. So if I scroll down here under the text one, I can find list style type, and I need to change that to say none, and then that gets rid of the bullet points. Okay, so the next rule that we need to write is to target the actual list items and these hyperlinks themselves so that we can style and change their color and position. So I'm going to create a new CSS rule, and it's going to be hash navigation space UL space ally space A. So I'm targeting the hyperlink of the list items. Just press return and enter to set that. Okay, the first thing I need to do is I need to get these buttons to come and sit up next to each other, because at the moment this is a vertical menu and I don't want a vertical menu, I want a horizontal one. So to convert a navigation menu from vertical to horizontal, you need to get these items to float left. So scrolling down, here's my float option. I want it to float left, so I'm going to choose that option, and it puts each one of these buttons next to each other. Now the other thing that you'll notice as well is that the left div has also come round and sat alongside, and that's because when you do float left on your navigation buttons, you leave space at the end and other divs can come round and fill that space. We'll look at how we can resolve that situation in a moment, how we can get the left div to go back down. For the moment, let's give these buttons some width. So I'm going to go back to layout, and I'm going to give them a px value, and I want each button to be 150 pixels wide. So now you can see that each button is 150 pixels wide. There's our left div. We will get that to sit around underneath in a moment, but for the moment we've got these buttons here. I think the next thing I want to do is add some colour to the background of the buttons. So I'm going to come in here, and I want them to be quite dark, so I'm going to choose 333, which is like a sort of a very, very dark grey. So it makes my unordered list here, these buttons go to a dark grey. I need to set up the font colour, so I want the text to be white. So let's get that right up in the corner, so we've got white text, there we go. And I want there to be no underline on these buttons as well, so I want text decoration to be none. That removes the underline, and I also want them to be centered in the middle of the button, so I'm going to do text align to be centered. In fact, I don't want the text to be brilliant white, I want that to actually be sort of a light grey, so CCC to make that a light grey, that's better. So when we look at the buttons, we can see that they're sort of a little bit skinny, so they're very thin, and that, if we go back to layout, is to do with padding. So by adding padding, you can make your buttons a little bit fatter. It adds the space between the text and the edge of the box that the text is sitting in. It makes it sort of bigger. So we want to increase the gap between the text and the top of the box, and that will be the padding value. Just going to click here to link it so that they all set the same, and I'm going to choose 5px here, and that makes our buttons a little bit bigger, nice and big. Okay, so one thing that we need to deal with now is we need to deal with how we can get these other divs that are starting to appear on the side here to move down and go below. So one way to do that is to come and find the actual navigation div itself. So once we select the navigation div here, we're going to target the whole of that navigation div, not just the unordered list that sits inside of it. And what I need to do here is I need to set an overflow property. So overflow Y is the overflow down the page, and I need to just set that to auto. And what that will do is it will push those other divs back where they should be underneath the navigation menu and leave this space unoccupied. Okay, next thing to do is to get this menu centering underneath the banner here. And the way to do that is to go back to your unordered list, because that is the whole of the menu, and we need to get it to be in the middle of the navigation div. So to do that, we need to work out how big the unordered list is. Now we know that each button was 105 pixels, 150 pixels wide. We then added 5 pixels on the left and 5 pixels on the right. So let's just look at that. If I tick here show set for our list item, we'll see the width is 150 pixels. We had padding left and padding right of 5 pixels. We need to add those together. So to find out the width of the button. So that means each button is 160 pixels. Now that I've done that, I know that I've got 5 buttons at 160 pixels. I just need to do 5 times 160 equals 800 pixels. I now know that the whole width of this unordered list should be 800 pixels. So I take off the tick for show property set, come here, set it to pixels, make sure it's 800, and then I can center it. By centering it, I can use the same technique that we use to center the wrapper div in the middle of the browser window, and that is I can set the margin of the unordered list to be auto. That's the margin left, and do the same here for margin right, set that to auto as well. And that centers our div in the middle of the browser window. Okay, I like it to look like one big bar as well, so what I need to do here is I need to go back to my navigation div. So that's what I need to go back in. I never entered that unordered list, that margin here, never set that to auto. Now I can go back to the navigation itself, the div that is holding our menu in place, and I can set its background color to be the dark black color as well. So it looks like it's one continuous bar, so I just need to set that to 333. There we go, and it's done that. Now there's a bit of a gap at the top here as well, so you'll see here that we've got a bit of a gap here, and that's because the unordered list, when it was indented with the bullet points, not only did it have padding that was preset to it, and we set the padding on the layout to be 0, there we go, but we also need to set the margin top to be 0, because there is a margin applied to an unordered list as well, which helps with the indentation of that list. So I'm just going to set that to 0px, and that will get rid of that gap that was at the top of our navigation menu. Okay, there's another thing that I need to do as well, and that is to set what happens when you roll over these buttons, because at the moment nothing happens when you roll over the buttons. So I need to add a third CSS property in here. So I'm just going to click plus. It's going to be hash navigation space UL space ally space a, and then colon hover to set the hover state. Press enter and return for that, and then I just need to set up some properties. So the background color, I think when it rolls over, is I'm going to make it go to the light grey, so CCC, and with the text color I'm going to make that go to the dark sort of black that we've chosen, which is the 333. So I'm just doing the opposite colors to what we have here for the idle state. Okay, we'll save that and preview it in a browser, and it will want us to save the style sheet that we've been creating as well. So what you'll see is there's my navigation menu. Now when I put my mouse over these buttons, you'll see that it just does the reverse. That's what we set for the hover state. So as you hover over the a colon hover, that's your rollover effect. Now there is a slight gap up the top here between this image and between our navigation menu. Now in our case, that's relating to the image itself. So that div that the image is sitting in, I need to give it a height which matches the height of the image itself. So if I click on the image, I can see that its height is 540 pixels, and I know it's sitting in a div called banner. So I need to come to the banner div and I just need to give it a height of 540 pixels, and that will close up that little gap that we had just between those two buttons there. So that's how you can create a CSS navigation menu and style it using CSS rules.